Okay, hi William, how are you?
Doing well, sir. How are you?
Doing fine, thank you. Thank you for coming on the show. I
Thank you for having
appreciate
me.
it. Is that a guitar back there?
It is not. That is a rifle case,
Oh, it's a
and you've
rifle.
also
Okay.
got flight pedals and a VR kit. Those are the few things I've managed to get moved in so far.
Oh, okay. Yeah, as we were talking about before we got on, you are in the process of moving. Funny how much a rifle case looks like a guitar case.
Yes, and we don't complain about that when we're going by airlines or whatever else. Just
Yeah, that's
keep it
true.
anonymous.
That's right. So you are here to promote your books. Your book is called Outsider. Is it Outsider or Outsiders?
Outsiders.
Okay. And there was a book years ago called The Outsiders, and they made it into a movie. Is this anything like that?
No, this is not going to be anything like anything that I've ever read. It's pretty much a unique project for me.
It looks like there's three books in the series at this point.
Yes, sir. I wrote it and then realized I couldn't fit it into one volume, so I split it up and self-published.
Well, we'll get to that in a second. I want to just touch on a little bit of your Navy career and then how you made the transition to writing. So you
Yes,
were
sir.
in the Navy for how long?
13 years.
13 years, and you were a pilot, is that correct?
I was a rotary wing pilot. I flew the H-60, which is our naval version of the Black Hawk helicopter. Then did a tour as a fixed wing instructor in the T-6, and then what we call a disassociated tour, which is non-flying. I was attached to a SOCOM unit for a couple of years doing some airstrike work, and after that, I got out.
Did you ever find it confusing to switch between helicopters and fixed wing aircraft? Like you're trying to do something that, muscular memory?
So the transition is you do your basic training every naval aviator does in a fixed wing aerobatic aircraft, like kind of like a World War II fighter. And then if you're going to fly helicopters, you go then to fly helicopters, and you're pretty much just starting over with the muscle memory, and it's going to be your only platform for 6, 7 years, even if you do transition back. So initial helo training is pretty rough. It's like you've never flown anything before, and then when you come back, if that's what you decide to do, like I did to the fixed wing, it comes quickly because you're an experienced aviator at that point, but you do have to have a proper airplane pilot remind you of a few basic things, power, attitude, trim, which is any fixed wing pilot, that's kind of their mantra to start with, and you completely forget that flying helicopters. So the very, very basic stuff of airplanes, you have to be reminded. Then it kicks in pretty fast.
Because I've done a lot of flight simulator and I almost got my private pilot's license.
Really?
Yeah, the years and years ago. But
Well,
when I've tried looking at some helicopter simulators, I thought, oh no, no, I can't do
yeah,
it. This is,
that's much harder in a simulator. Even I struggle with a helicopter in like that VR sim back there. Trying to do it on a screen, forget about it. It'd be crazy.
so okay. So you're in the Navy, then you got out, and now, as we were talking about, you have moved to Texas for a new job. What's your new job going to be?
Yeah, so I got out and I was going to do some contracting work. In fact, I started some contracting work over in UAE. Not the sexy kind of contracting that people think of, but in this case, mentoring Afghan student pilots for their Air Force. And then Afghanistan fell apart. So 4 months into that career, it collapsed, and I was kind of thinking about what I still want to do before I settle down to desk jobs and that kind of thing. And I decided the only thing I hadn't really tried yet was law enforcement. So I came back to Texas, and my next few years will be in law enforcement before I go do something more civilized.
As a police officer or
Yes, sir.
yeah? Okay, well, that's great. That's super. And I'm actually happy to hear that because, in this country, we've had this sort of anti police attitude running through some parts of the mainstream media. And I certainly don't agree with it. I think that in order for a civil society, you need law enforcement. And
I think that's probably true, and I think the anti-police sentiment is probably a vocal minority. Certainly most of the communities around here are very supportive, but that's kind of one of the reasons I wanted to get into it. Is it's in the news. It's a huge topic right now. What is the truth about policing and about the community's relationship with policing? And I figured if I was going to write about it at some point, then I should probably try it out first and see what all the fuss is about. So it's kind of part of my motivation for trying it, is just that it is so controversial.
Well, all right. Well, best of luck with that.
Thank you.
So, how did you make the transition to writing? What was it that inspired you to write this book series?
I have always been writing since I was fairly young. College was when I first started writing. Like most kids, started with a fan fiction that turned into a very long fan fiction. Wrote a few other original pieces that were kind of just for me, and kept writing when ideas struck me, especially when I needed to relieve some stress at work. So I was writing during flight school to vent, and then ended up writing again during my dissociated tour, and finished it on deployment in Somalia. We had a lot of downtime on the compound over there. So just kind of writing the books and stories that other people aren't writing that I would like to read but can't find. So I figured I'd write them myself, and when I have the time, that's what I do.
So, give us a little synopsis of the book.
It's a bit of a techno thriller, but the main character is a young woman from my background, which is to say computer science, computer nerd, definitely not a jock, not a fighter, not an aggressive or type A sort of person. She is a graduate student in artificial intelligence, machine learning programming, and I have a computer science background myself. So I had always seen a lot of fiction about artificial intelligence that does not understand it at all. So I figured I'd write a story that approached AI realistically. So I have her studying AI, learning to do it. And in the process of a project that she's working on, she discovers a different kind of AI that is hypothetically possible, that she finds already running on the internet. About the same time, some special forces guys run into a problem. Some intel guys are starting to put some pieces together. There's signs of a conspiracy, and of course the threads interweave, and she ends up linking up with the soldiers when they realize they're all working on one sort of global, multifaceted problem. Who's behind the AI? What is it searching for? What does it have to do with these mysterious encounters and the attacks and everything else that's going on? They investigate. They get into a bunch of trouble. Some people get assassinated, and next thing they know, they're in World War whatever. And then they find out the truth behind it all, and things really get big. And that's kind of where the first episode, the first volume, ends with the revelations and the real stakes of their conflict revealed to them.
Does the AI run amok? Is that what happens? Does it kind of come up
No,
with its...
not exactly. This is the whole point of this book, is to subvert those common tropes. Because if you really understand AI, that's not how it's going to surprise you. This book is all about some very sophisticated people using AI technology and some other technologies to do what it really might be capable of doing in the future. That you will be surprised to discover what they're up to and what the AI can do. It's already on all the computers, and it's searching for something, and it's categorizing all of the knowledge in the internet to find what it's looking for. And the question is, who put it there, and what is it that they are using this AI to hunt?
Okay, well, that was always the scary thing about AI, was that it's benign enough as long as we control it, but once it comes up with its own agenda, then the possibilities are endless. And then you have movies like Terminator and Matrix. And
Yes, sir. And that's kind of the typical arc that follows. And that's kind of why I wanted to take a completely different track. The AI in this is much more realistic, but also there's more subtle and subversive things that can be done with it. And so the question is, again, who put it out there? What is it looking for? What's it actually trying to accomplish? Because it's, unfortunately for our heroes, not going to be anything quite so easy as simply finding the hub and shutting it down. It's a much more sophisticated operation.
You mentioned that you were self-published, so you put this book series together. You said you had enough material to cover 3 books, yeah?
Easily, easily. It's about, I don't even want to say, I probably shouldn't. It's about 600,000 words.
Well, that's, yeah, easily 3 books. Why did you decide to self-publish rather than trying to shop it around?
Well, I did shop it around, but not with any particular hope that a traditional publisher would pick it up. For a first-time author, they're looking for a very particular profile of work, and I just don't have the time in my life to write the standard popcorn novel and write a bunch of them in order to get on that bandwagon, get associated with a publisher, and then do my passion project. I'm either in the Navy flying or in the Navy running airstrikes, or now I'm doing all this other stuff. So when I'm going to write the thing that matters to me. That ended up being this awesome book. I was about to call it a monstrosity, but it's an awesome long form science fiction novel, is what it really is. And I have a passion for this particular story, so I figured I would go ahead after it didn't get picked up by a publisher and put it out there myself, just so that somebody wants to read it, they can.
Well, I appreciate that because I know that people who have been traditionally published before have had to rewrite and edit and rewrite their story. And sometimes by the time they're done, it doesn't resemble the story they started out with. And that can be very frustrating for the author.
That can be. Now, authors have to take an ego check. I would have loved to get an editor's take on this thing. It is long. I tried to trim it down. I tried to get test readers, anybody who would read it and try it, tell me, where is it boring? Where do I need to cut? Because it is such a long story. And to an extent, that service is a luxury that an author has, and their books are usually better when they get all the fat sliced off of them, in some sense. They're more readable, they're a better product for the commercial market and for the average reader. But the flip side of that is some projects, you can end up cutting a bit of the soul out of it too. So I would be happy to write a popcorn novel if and when I have the time. After my law enforcement career, if things settle down and I get a desk job, maybe I'll produce some shorter, just fun stories and put them out there under an editor's knife and make something that's a little more efficient. But for this one, this is a story. Yes, it's about AI and conspiracies and all that stuff, but it's about the story of this girl who is not a fighter and not type A, like I said, learning to be what she has to be to survive a world that's going to war, and to fight for what she believes in when she realizes nobody else is going to fight for it. And that takes a certain physicality, and that's something that's lacking in a lot of today's underdog stories. You get the nerd hero who solves problems by being smarter, more learned, whatever. He never really develops his physical side, and that's not how the world works. So she has to come to grips with her weaknesses and develop into a person who has character, physicality, and her intellect by the end of the story. And frankly, this one, I wouldn't want it to be shorter because I want it to have a natural, organic feel as she grows over the course of this adventure of hers.
William, we are just about out of time, so we got to kind of wind this down.
No problem.
How long has the book been out?
It's been out about a month now.
Okay. Are you getting any positive feedback, reviews, anything like that?
The few reviews that I have are spectacular. It's like somebody gave the first volume 4 stars because I wanted to give the other 2 5 stars. I'm like, well, that's wonderful.
Oh,
that
that's
warms
good.
my heart.
Yeah.
So it's the feedback is positive, such as it is.
Do you have a website that you want to give out?
wccollier.com.
Okay. And people can find links to your books and everything there?
It's on all of the major ebooks, and you can also order paperback from Barnes & Noble or Amazon. So it is good to go, and they can get everything they need right off of that, or they can just search for Outsiders Collier on Amazon or Nook, and they'll find it.
Okay, great. Well, it was nice meeting you. Thank you for coming on this show. Best of luck with
You
your
as well, sir.
books, and best of luck with your